On today's Minute of the Apes, this is the Superman the movie time theory of travel, where by moving backwards you can go through time zones.
Take your sticking paws off me, you damn dirty ape!
Ready to the divine bomb.
The only good human is a dead human! There is fire, there is smoke.
The minute of the apes. The minute of the apes. The minute of the apes. The minute of the apes.
Hello and welcome to Minute of the Apes, the daily podcast where we break down every minute of the Planet of the Apes movies, 1 minute at a time, but we stay only in one time zone. Richard, how are you this morning?
Doing good.
And Sean, Sean wanted to say something right away. So, Sean, go.
I'm giggling because on CNN right now they're showing Bernie Sanders, all the Bernie Sanders memes.
Oh, man.
And he's laughing at them all.
Good.
I saw somebody take it and make a Planet of the Apes meme out of it now, and I can't remember what it was. Damn
you know
it.
what? Probably the best comment I saw on this meme in particular is that we can do a meme about politicians that we can all enjoy without being mean-spirited, and it's kind of nice to get back to that. Like these are you know, I'm not an uber fan of Bernie Sanders per se, but these are really, really fun, and I don't think of them as being mean.
Well, I saw
enjoy.
I saw one this morning that was a derivative of it, and it was a picture of President Biden looking out a window in the Oval Office, looking very pensive, and it said, "I have mittens too," and it was like, "Oh, sad Joe wants to wear his mittens too."
I know we're probably gonna have sad Uncle Joe memes coming up pretty soon along those lines.
Well, anyway, while we're at it too, you know, hats off to Bernie too, taking this fun moment that we're all sharing, creating something and donating all the proceeds to charity. What a good man for doing that.
Didn't Keanu embrace sad Keanu at some point too? Didn't he have fun with that as well?
Oh yeah, I'm sure he did.
I would hope so.
Just have fun with it. It's none of it's in mean spirit. It's just kind of a, you know, because they did so much joyful things. It's just some great things with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we'll get to it in a minute. But I spent probably 10 minutes, 15 minutes reading about time travel and faster than time travel, because Virgil, we'll get to it, does a time zone thing that if you travel faster than light in the reverse order of the Earth moving, and I'm like, oh fuck, this is like Superman the movie. Remember when he spun around the world? And undid time just by moving the Earth backwards.
With that tease, let's go ahead and get to the minute, because that's funny you say that, because I had another thought of where we were going with this. So, Sean, tell us what happens with minute 11.
All right. We're going to start minute 11 with the teacher saying, "Turn in your parchments," and ends with Cornelius receiving praise. But wait, there's a mistake.
All right, let's take a listen to minute 11, Battle for the Planet of the Apes.
Sign your parchments and copy down what I've written. The best shall be hung from these hooks.
I can think of better things to hang from those hooks.
But Virgil, can we tamper with time? Accept my premise.
What premise?
That since man once learned to travel faster than sound, he could later have learned to travel faster than light.
We accept.
Then imagine a musician giving a live broadcast from what was once London to what was once New York on a Wednesday. He then travels faster than light from London to New York, where he arrives, or as physicists would confirm, on the previous Tuesday, listens to his own broadcast on the Wednesday, dislikes its quality intensely, then travels back faster than light to London in time for him to decide not to give his broadcast. Come, I'll prove it to you logically.
Good, Cornelius. Oh, but you've made a mistake.
As in minute 11, we have a village's worth of apes and humans.
So there are so many things to unpack in this minute that really nothing happens in, but I'm going to actually start before we get to time travel and say that we have two characters. We have Teacher and Virgil, who speak the way that no one speaks. Teacher, whenever it's like, and thus they shall be hung from these hooks. It's like, what the F is this? Is he some kind of like Moses coming down from the mount to teach them ape shall not kill ape?
It totally needed some Madeline Kahn from History of the World.
Yes.
The best shall be hung. from the
You know, it's post-apocalypse. If you want to reinvent yourself, it's like going to college. Nobody knows you there, so you can change and pretend you're from London, but you just got to keep it up the whole time.
Well, then when we get to Virgil's even kind of speaking, if you accept my premise, who the fuck ever says that? If it starts with Virgil, can we travel through time? I believe we can. If you look at this, that's how they speak like that, not if you accept my premise. In fact, that's what I'm going to start saying to you guys from now on when I want to make a point. If you'll accept my premise.
Well, I also think they're trying to show that Virgil is a smarty pants.
Well, we're establishing. I can think about it. If you think about it this way, we're establishing the orangutans as the smart, elite,
smarter
right?
ones,
Which
and
we haven't really done yet since the first two movies.
Without question, this moment is entirely meant to introduce us to Virgil, which we get our first true moment with Paul Williams. There he is, the great Paul Williams in orangutan makeup. And it's, let's make him smart. Oh, by the way, he drank the juice that Hassline left on the world because it was time upon time upon time, Ripley. It was, oh my God. It's the same exact garbage. But that's funny you should say that about Superman, because I had that kind of feeling, and you somehow took it, Richard, and put it into words. I was like, what is this? We can go backwards across. And
if we go from London to New York, which is in an earlier time zone, by traveling faster than the speed of light, you would technically arrive before the London moment, even though that actually physically doesn't make sense. It doesn't actually work.
And if you listened to your performance, would you also? That as a musician, I was like, okay. First off, most musicians don't listen to their performances; they hate them, and they would never do that. But if I go back in time, is the first thing I want to do listen to my performance that I gave on a past day?
Yeah, but if he goes back in time and listens to his performance, then there's two of them existing there. Then he goes forward in time to change his performance, but he's already there. So aren't there like three of them in this timeline now? And then this is when the fight begins, kind of like in Looper, where they all got to fight each other to see who actually gets to exist.
This is more about the idea that time as a perception construct versus a time as something you can move through and out. You just actually are aware of. So the idea, if he could actually remember the future, because time might be omnipresent, he could then modify or decide not to do his idea in the future. I don't know.
But they're also getting into the grandfather paradox of, if I go back and kill my grandfather, do I exist? If he goes back and changes his performance, then does he ever have to go back to change his performance because it's the performance he always wanted? But if it's a performance you get into a loop of, if he changes it, then he didn't have to go back and change it. But if he didn't go back and change it, then he has to change it.
And also, did the performance ever exist if he's always going back in
If
time before it existed?
Yeah, when did the performance actually begin?
If there's a man if there's a painter painting a painting, and the painter paints the painting, it's just like, oh God.
And I doubt it's going to be addressed in the movie, but let's remember, the previous movie, we had a chimpanzee afraid of fire at the beginning of the movie, and now we have an orangutan talking about time travel. Where did the intelligence leap come from?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, we don't know how much time has passed, right? Did they tell us what time it was when this movie takes place?
Not officially.
They told us where the lawgiver was, but they didn't tell us where Cornelius was.
Well,
we just
hang on a second. Didn't and boy, screw this shit. I'll just go pull up the clip right now because I've got them. Well, I have to download it.
I think the timestamp was the lawgiver timestamp, not
I thought whenever we saw Aldo riding his horse across the endless oblivion of landscapes that
they gave us the time. I thought it was just the lawgiver they gave us.
Nah, they didn't do that. Hang on, I've got them all pulled up.
Well, anyway, so much time has passed that one of the things we kind of began to pick up in this moment that we'll see in the future minutes as well. I mean, he talks about, the charcoal stick before. He talks about the parchment paper in this. Clearly, there's no electricity going on right now as they kind of mutter about the town. So they had like a dramatic regression in terms of their capabilities in a short period of time. I mean, anytime we see movies about, the zombie apocalypse, they're still at least refarming items from the cities and scavenging from the cities. So if they're having to use parchment paper now and charcoal sticks, they're making their own stuff as opposed to just bringing it in from inside the wastelands.
Yeah.
From outside the wastelands.
Well, I'm assuming the wastelands are radioactive or stuff like that, so they're
Well,
trying
maybe
to stay out of them.
maybe they hadn't even really thought about the fact that they could scavenge on these cities yet. I don't know. Who knows? But they've got good clothes. They robbed an Army Navy store for all their gear. It actually would have been kind of nice, if in the last movie, when we're in the cities, if the humans were wearing uniforms that then become adopted by the apes at some point.
I want to digress a little bit to Virgil's use of the musician. That hits me as odd in this film, that we've never seen the apes have. Now, they had a museum, but it was mostly a historical artifact museum in the first film. We don't see artists. We don't see musicians. The concept of music begins, they believe, with people, just like Stanley Kubrick's thing. They're hitting, instruments of war.
Rocks, sticks against rocks or whatever.
Then they begin to understand the tonality of it, the rhythm of it, and that's where music derives from. I find musicians to be a weird concept in Planet of the Apes. Am I going to see some, are they going to suddenly go to some chimpanzee busking on the corner of something? And it was just such a weird thing that he would, and also the use of London and New York. It feels so separated, that just that factual London and New York. Why couldn't they say if one city on one side of the world, one city the other? The construct of which he speaks is just, it's taking a vernacular that your audience immediately understands, and I'm sure that's why they did it. But it just feels really out of step with what you're trying to create with this very dystopian tree village.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, how old is Caesar at this particular point for all of these orangutans and gorillas to have, as Sean mentioned earlier, progressed this far along? Mm-hmm. It would suggest that Virgil himself, even though the cities have been destroyed, would know what a New York and a London is, and would have witnessed a performance and would have been a part of all of this, even though he was a slave at one point. Otherwise, how would he know all of these things? But he himself would suddenly have to have this massive growth of intelligence in order to get this place. Even if a generation had passed, he would still have to have access to the media or the knowledge to tell these stories.
Just to have even just to have the theory of time travel, or faster than sound, or faster than light, or how fast light is, or what happens when you get closer to the speed of light, and time dilation, and all that kind of stuff. Where did he find all this information?
See, now that would have that's a really good point. Especially if Caesar's born with the ability to speak and to reason. We can agree upon that.
We know that, yes. He's the one product of two apes from the future that came back to the past. He's the thing that is smarter, that we know for sure.
It'd be better for Virgil to be referencing Caesar's own journey.
I kind of thought the same thing. Journey. So if we agree upon Caesar, Lisa then becomes our second ape that somehow progresses if we watch the one cut of Conquest where she says no. She speaks. She develops an ability, and we see her do it. And that's born of passion, and I guess seeing, having the word no thrown at her 1,000 times. However, would it not have been better if I want to establish a scene that says Virgil's smart, to have him reading the scrolls of Caesar? To have him reading things where Caesar, maybe Caesar's taken upon that to tell them what he knew from that world and the things he did. Therefore, there would be information. And maybe he's got Hassline's books, because maybe those books survived. He could have been reading, and somebody could have asked him, instead of this, if you accept my theory, it's just.
We're coming off of the reading and writing lesson in the schoolroom. Mm-hmm. So it'd be pretty fantastic if you see Virgil reading from a book to another chimp and an orangutan, and then he's kind of expounding upon something that he's just read out loud. Sure. Okay. We could follow that.
That would have been a cool idea if I know, because of what's going to happen with our teacher we met today, or the other day, I know what's going to happen. I know why we need a human in that role. It would have been interesting if Virgil and teacher were together teaching, and these kind of things were concepts that they were learning in school. That would have been an interesting idea.
That would put him in the scene as well, as opposed to what we can talk about in the next minute or two. Yeah. Can I go back for just like a half a second?
I just want to.
Sean, go ahead.
Can you?
I want to say.
I don't know. I'm traveling faster than light.
I want to say one thing to wrap that. Well, and I was going to say it, but then you guys went on your comedy shtick, and I completely forgot what I was going to say.
What were you going to say?
Oh, I know what I was going to say. You're right. If he had been in the scene, it would have. There's a lot of happenstance and coincidence that happens over the next few minutes that allows people and apes to see the action that's happening. Again, if you put them together in that classroom, it would have really streamlined and made it better.
Right.
Anyway, you were